Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and we are continuing our series on Mondays and Tuesdays. Who is this man? And of course, we are looking at the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Jesus Christ. And when he arrived on the scene over 2,000 years ago, people were asking that question: who is this man? And we're basing this, a lot of it, off a book called Who is This Man that John Ortberg wrote a few years ago, but taking some of that, and then also what God has taught me as a follower for Jesus over 40 years. And we've been looking at things such as the man who was bigger than religion, the man who redefined forgiveness, the man who changed death forever. And we're going to be looking at the man on the cross and the man who lives. But today I want to take a look at the man who redefined love. The man who redefined love. Because, friends, here's what I know. Everybody wants to be loved. Not tolerated, not managed, not fixed, just loved. From childhood to old age, that longing never leaves us, friends. We want someone to look at us fully, at our strengths, our failures, our secrets, even our disappointments, our setbacks, but they still will move toward us, showing that they love us. Yet, friends, I've learned here in my 60 years being on this planet that love is one of the most misunderstood words in our culture. Often, I think we confuse love with approval, attraction, affection, and agreement. Let's say it again. I think we confuse love with approval, attraction, affection, and agreement. We say, well, if you love me, you'll affirm everything that I do. Or if you love me, you'll never confront me about anything in my life. But friends, Jesus didn't just talk about love. He redefined it. Jesus showed us what love looks like when it moves towards broken people instead of away from them. In fact, A.W. Tozer, the great theologian, said, love is not something God does, it is who God is. Because, friends, here's what I know. When Jesus entered a room, love entered the room. When Jesus touched a life, love took on flesh. Today and tomorrow, we're going to take a look at 3 different scenes in the Bible and one cross that shows us how Jesus redefined love forever. First thing that Jesus did when he redefined love took place in a room full of judgment. A room full of judgment. We're going to be hanging out in Luke 7 today, so if you got your Bible, you can turn to that, or if you're driving or listening on a podcast, I'll be reading it to you there, but we'll be in Luke chapter 7, verses 36 through 39. It says, when one of the Pharisees, which was Simon, invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, so she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind Jesus at his feet weeping, the woman began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair. She kissed them and poured perfume on them. When the Pharisee, who was Simon, who had invited Jesus, saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner. So let's kind of summarize this here, friends. Jesus invited to dinner at the home of a Pharisee. His name was Simon. It was Simon's house. And, it was a respectable room. There was religious leaders there, people that were, of high moral character, had polished reputations. And then all of a sudden, an uninvited guest walks in. I love how Luke just says it very plainly. She lived a sinful life. So, everyone knew her story. That there had to be whispers filling the room, even without a word being spoken. Everyone knows her story. But yet Jesus kneels, the woman kneels at Jesus' feet. She weeps. Her tears fall on his feet. She wipes him with her hair. And then she pours perfume on Jesus' feet. And Simon thinks, If this man really were a prophet, he would know who is touching him. Okay, friends? Basically, translation is, if Jesus really knew who this woman was, he would have pulled away from her and not let her touch him. It's one of the things, friends, that, man, if you're not helping out in some type of ministry that helps people that are struggling, that are down and out and broken, I really want to challenge you to do that. You've heard me talk about Lighthouse Ministry, where I've been blessed to be a part of for serving now for over 10 years. I go once a month, occasionally twice a month, and I'll share a 7, 8, 10-minute devotion at most before a meal is served at lunch or dinner. And man, it just always helps me keep my eye on the ball, because those are people that society have just kind of cast out. Many of them, homeless, all of them just struggling. And man, it's just that reminder that when I go down there that, you know what, man, I am so blessed, and I need to quit whining on little bitty things, because, man, compared to these people, God, I have no reason to whine. And so I want to encourage you, if you don't have a ministry you serve in, to consider helping at Lighthouse Ministries. They serve lunch and dinner 7 days a week. And you can go to lighthouseministries.org. It's located in downtown Lexington. But going back to the story in Luke, I want you to kind of maybe picture a formal dinner, place cards, etiquette, careful conversation. Then someone who, quote, doesn't belong walks in, rumpled, clothes, they're weeping, and, they're uninvited. You can imagine, everyone freezes. The host is embarrassed and immediately starts doing the mental math. Who allowed this? What will people think? And yet, the thing about it is Jesus, is the honored guest at the table and stands up and say, hey, let her come. She's with me. Let her come. She's with me. And, it reminded me recently, I had somebody that came up to me, and their husband was a photographer. His name was Chuck Perry. He passed away last year, and he took pictures of all the UK games. And he had this little spiral notebook, just one of those real small ones that you could just write a few notes on, almost like a little reporter's notebook. And it had picture in 1998 of Rob Locke and his friend Greg. And so she comes up to me at a Wednesday night Bible study at Gardenside Christian Church here in Lexington, where I'm fortunate to be the pastor. Says, do you remember this? And I looked at her, I said, yes, I actually have that picture. In fact, I've used it in a sermon before. It's a picture of me with former UK basketball player Rob Locke. Rob was 6'11", was the starting center for University of Kentucky men's basketball back in 1988. And it's a picture of him in his UK uniform, and I'm in my tuxedo. And I had a formal, I was at a fraternity, and Rob, how guys are, double dog dared me that I wouldn't wear my tuxedo to the game before going to my formal that evening. And I said, okay. And so I actually wore my tux. So we got this picture. The thing makes it, obviously hilarious, because here's Rob, UK basketball uniform, and I'm in a tux, which totally looks out of place. But also Rob's 6'11", I'm 5'9", barely. So it's a hilarious picture. But what made me think of that, okay, is that, Jesus said, hey, this woman's okay to be at this party because she's with me. She's here with me to see me. And, Rob, we would go places in town when he played for UK. If there was a wait at the restaurant, we got in. And, they would just say, he'd look at them, say, hey, table for two, and said, he's with me. Or if we go somewhere to a social event or whatever, we could get in and for free, and he would just say, hey, he's with me. And so, it made me feel special. And, this woman, she feels special because Jesus is saying, hey, yeah, I know she doesn't, quote, fit in here with your religious people and high moral people, but you know what? She's with me. And I would say today, maybe you feel like you're like this woman that showed up at this party uninvited, that, you don't fit in places. But friends, I want to remind you, if you're a follower of Jesus, that he's with you and he wants to help you. He wants to encourage you. He wants to love you. And yet, so many times we know what that's like it was at Simon's house full of religious people. but only one person there knew they needed grace. Judgment is quiet, but it's loud in its effects, isn't it? I mean, you can fill it out without anyone speaking words. You can just sense it in a glance, in a posture, in who gets invited and in who doesn't. That's why, one of the things that we talk about at Gardenside, where our pastor is, we have these 3 signs, and they're not physical signs, but they're signs that we hope that you feel in your heart and that you just see it through your interactions with people there. The first one is just come as you are. Come with your doubts, your fears, your wounds, and your brokenness. And, wherever you are, you clothes. I mean, people ask, well, what do I wear? And, we do have people that dress up. They might be wearing a coat and tie or a dress, but we have a lot of people in jeans, and in summertime we have people in shorts, and it truly is just come as you are. I mean, it doesn't matter what you wear, just as long as you wear something, okay? Got to wear some clothes, all right? Second thing is sign that we hope people see is that we believe grace happens. We believe grace happens there. You're never too far from God for him to redeem your life. And that's what Jesus had done for this woman. She'd had a broken life and, was, a prostitute. And yet Jesus had healed her in her heart. And she walked away from that. And her heart and mind were changed forever. She was transformed. She experienced that grace that only Jesus can provide. And the third side that we hope that you will see and your heart, mind, and interaction with people is a sign that says you matter to God. Like I said, it's not a physical sign, but, here's the deal. So many people, they don't think that they matter to anybody, much less God. And, man, I want to remind you, when you look at the cross, then you got to know that you matter to God. We've got some beautiful stained glass windows there, and we've got a cross up behind the stage there where we worship with music and where I share God's word. And there's this huge cross and stained glass window. When the light shine through it from the daylight, it's just powerful. I mean, it's powerful. I would go and sit in the sanctuary sometimes during the week when I've had a bunch of stressful phone calls or meetings and just need to get recentered on Jesus and just look at the cross and, just remind God sees me, he loves me, he wants to help me. And that's what this woman felt. And that's how she came to Jesus uninvited at this party. But here's what I know, friends. Sometimes we see people that look different than us and, we get hesitant or whatever to be friendly to them, to love them. And friends, here's what I know. We need to be kind because everybody is, they're dealing with something, friends. I don't care what their Facebook post, Instagram post, TikTok, social media post. Everybody's struggling with something. I know that doing ministry now for almost 25 years. Robin Williams, the great comedian I used to love. The reason I used to is because he ended his life by suicide a few years ago, and nobody could believe it because here's this guy that's hilarious and a professional comedian. But Robin Williams said when he was still alive, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle that you know nothing about. And friends, that is so, so true. And so, I just want to encourage you today to extend grace to somebody that you may think they don't deserve it, but you have no idea what they're dealing with. And you're never more like Jesus when you do that than when you do something like that. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but you've been blessed by this program. I hope that you'll share it with someone else, and I hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we look at the man who redefined love on Hope is Here.